Shalom friends, this is Eliyahu Ishir from Chesed Ve'emet, www.lovingkindness.co. Thanks for joining us for another shiur in Derech Hashem, written by the Ramchal, 1707 to 1747. We're studying about prophecy. We're in section 3, dealing with the soul, divine inspiration, and everything that is related to real spirituality. We're on chapter 2, and within that, we're up to paragraph number 8. We're speaking about Inyanei Hanavua, Umiluseha, Umaseha. We're speaking about the matters of prophecy, its words and its actions. V'amnam tzarich sheteida. However, you should know shehine benevuas hamisnabim, that with regards to people who are prophesying, yivchanu beit habechinot. There are two different aspects. Ha'echad, one aspect. Ha'inyan, which is the matter itself. V'habeit, and the second thing is hadvarim v'hamilot, words and the sayings. Meaning to say, one aspect is the actual prophecy that the prophet will experience, and the second thing is the words that he's going to hear. V'zeh, and this works like this. There is a situation where a prophet is able to grasp various matters, and it's not bound, it's not surrounded by words. But rather, they say it to the prophet in words according to his will. In other words, it just comes across in a certain expression. And then there are prophets that receive the prophecy in a particular defined manner. B'milos, through words. Gamken, also. Like the prophets that we know about, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and all the other prophets, that are written for the generations. These were people who, when they had prophecy, were able to actually write down the prophecy that they had. Now, many people could get to a level of experiencing prophecy in a general way, where they experience a vision. But then there are other people, like these prophets that we're speaking about, who are able to not just see the vision, but they're able to put it into words. Shehine, behold, nikbalu milosehim benevua, their words are directed into the prophecy, lichlol inyanim rabim ke'echad, and they come to include many matters in one go. The gambazeh tishtaneh hamelitza, and even this, the whole parable, the whole situation basically is going to change. Kafi havanat hanavi, according to the understanding of the prophet, Atzmo, himself, Uderachav, and the way that he works. And it will also change in accordance with the nature of his tongue, which means to say that he expresses prophecy different to the way another person experiences prophecy. The Derech Diburo, and the way he speaks. And happens sometimes. That sometimes the prophets also have to do deeds together with their prophecy, which means to say, as we're going to see in a few moments, that no two prophets prophesy in the same manner, which means when a prophet expresses what it is that he's seen, he expresses it only from the point of view of what he himself is seeing related to his own lifestyle. If he is used to experiencing certain things in a certain way in his own mind, then when he sees a prophecy the way he sees it, he will express the prophecy in his own words. Those words might not be consistent with the word that somebody else would say, even though the other person is also a prophet, because he is going to experience it according to his way. And it is for this reason that we see that when the prophets prophesy, that they express themselves in slightly different ways, and why it is so often that it is difficult for us to understand the exact language that they are using. Kagon, for example, a zoro shel Yirmiyahu, Yirmiyahu's belt, ve'ulo ve'levaina shel Yechezkel, and also the yoke and the brick that Yechezkel had. These are examples of practical things that the prophets would do in order to express various things that were happening at the time. So God said to Yirmiyahu, for example, take a leather belt and put the leather belt into a rock and leave it there for a period of time and come back. And when you see the rock, when you come back to the rock, you'll see that the leather belt has been worn out, and this relates to the Jewish people. And as a result of seeing the particular event, it becomes clear as to what the prophecy was. And God told Ezekiel, the prophet, that he should have a yoke upon his neck, upon his shoulders. And that would illustrate the yoke of the Jewish people under the burden of the Babylonians, and so on and so forth. This was the expression that he used to show the Jewish people by walking around with this yoke, that was the actual situation that they were in. When people would look at him, hopefully they would pay attention to his strange behavior, and they'd ask him a question, what are you doing? And that was really an expression of what was happening at that time. And then the brick, where Yechezkel has to take a brick and he has to penetrate the brick and break through it, as if to show how the Babylonians were going to smash through the temple and destroy the temple and all these various things. He used physical things in order to express his prophecy. And this is how the prophets would work. So they used to work through words, they used to work through actions, through signs, and all these different things that they used to do. And for that reason, many people would say, the prophets are mad. That's what they say today, that as the Talmud teaches us, that prophecy was given into the hands of madmen and into the hands of young children. Why is it that prophecy is given to madmen? Because madmen are people who do strange things, and yet everybody will say they're crazy, and yet what they're doing fulfills exactly what the prophecy is about. But in order to express what it's about, they have to do strange things that the world is not used to. So there we are, all of a sudden, Yirmiyahu, you can imagine in the news today that Yirmiyahu walks off to the rock and he pulls out a belt, and they take a photograph of him next to the rock. They say, what's this? Yirmiyahu says, this is the belt that represents the terrible tragedy that's about to happen. Can't you see that the belt is all worn out? And the next thing you know, the media are up against him. What a madman. He takes the belt, puts it into a rock. The belt gets filled with dirt, and it gets old and can't be used. And he makes up a stupid statement that this is the state of affairs that we're in. And Yechezkel takes a brick and he smashes the brick. And he says, this is a sign that God is going to destroy, or the Babylonians, and God is going to destroy the temple. And they say, a madman. He takes a picture of himself with a brick and he's punching the brick. What a madman. He's supposed to be a Torah scholar. He should rather be involved in karate. What is he doing? Smashing a brick with his hands. And he's telling a whole story about it. This is how the prophets would express their prophecies. Ve'inyanam haya, and their matter was, she'al yedei ha'maaseh hahem, that through all of these deeds, hayu mitorerim mikoikos ha'elyonim, what they actually did through their deeds is they awakened powerful forces from above. Ma shehaya mitzarech, whatever was necessary, lefi amitasa inyan, whatever was necessary for the truth of the particular matter, she'alav hayata nevuah, that was what the prophecy was all about. Bechol bekinosav, in all its aspects. Ume'az, and from then, hayu nizdamim v'nifkadim le'otzia davar, they were able to prepare and cause this whole thing to happen. Lif'ol bisman hara'oi lo, that this particular thing would happen at the time that it was fitting to happen in. So we see that these prophets kind of look like madmen doing these particular things. But the Ramchal is teaching us this is the way of prophecy. Prophecy is not something that's normal. Prophecy is something that when we confront the prophet, we think he's a madman. He says strange things. He does strange things. We run away from him because we say that he's a madman. One of the dangers, of course, is exactly this. When a person is involved in the deep studies of mysticism, and especially if he's not a balanced person and he doesn't know where he's going with it, is he can end up in this very point where all of a sudden he begins to do all sorts of things and people don't know what he's doing. And he thinks he knows what he's doing. Either he thinks he knows because he does know, or he thinks he knows and he doesn't know. Well, whichever one it is, when people see his behavior, they're going to say there's something wrong with him. Put him into a mental home, for example. He needs help. He needs to go and see a doctor. He needs to see a psychiatrist. He needs help. There's something wrong with him. But in reality, he's a very great man. He's a prophet. He knows what's going to happen. And his actions are there in order to show about the event that's going to take place. Shitov To'ar Hanavi. Now, the use of the title of prophet. Od Tzarik Sheteda. You should also know, says the Ramchal, Ki hinei To'ar Navi be'emes, that when we speak about this description of a true prophet, or bedikduk, very precisely, lo ya'ot, it's not really fitting, except to a person who already attained prophecy, al-buriyah, clearly. So when we say that a person's a prophet, What we mean to say is the person really is a prophet. Like, for example, if we say that somebody is a doctor, we don't mean that he's studying medicine. We mean he studied medicine. He is now a doctor. When we say about a prophet that he's a prophet, we don't mean to say that he's studying mysticism. We mean to say that he actually does things that are in the realm of prophecy. He actually prophesies in reality. And it's clear to him that he's prophesying from Hashem. As we said, wrote above, a person who gets to this level, there will not be any doubt in his prophecy at all. And there will not come any mistake in his prophecy, because he's a person who really is a prophet. And when he says something, that's what he says. That's what goes. However, al derech harchava, in a more lengthy manner, if we widen it, we can also apply this title to a person who is just beginning to grasp what prophecy is about. And there come to him revelations which are outside of the norm of human revelations, which means he sees things in worlds that most people don't have access to. Even such an individual who is on that path and already experiences such visions, he already can be considered in this particular same realm, the same area. However, but a person who only gets to these levels, is not yet certain of the whole story that's going on. And it's possible for him that he'll still make a mistake. And like, for example, with the matter of the prophecies, prophecy of the prophets of Achav, we're going to describe a little bit later. The whole story of the prophets of Achav is that they were not great prophets, as in perfect prophets. And as a result, even though they could have said things that were true, there were many times that what they would say was not true. And this is exactly what happened with the story of Achav. Indeed, however, somebody who knows the way of prophecy, the ways of prophecy, al-Burian, they know them well. Yoidim, they know. Kol ze al nachon, they know everything clearly. Yoidim ha-miksholot ha'ele, they also know the stumbling blocks that these other people are going through. She'efshar she'yimtz'u, that it's possible to find these things, umakirim sivanehim, and they're able to recognize all the signs, v'haderek linatzel mehim, and they know the way in order to protect themselves from them, ad higia el amitas hanuvah, until they can get to the absolute truth of what prophecy is. And these ones that are teaching the students, as we said above, that if one wanted to become a prophet or one wants to engage in learning more about the mystic tradition, one needs a teacher who he himself has reached those levels, who will guide one on the right path. You need to be guided on the right path. You can't just go on the path yourself. It's like a forest out there. If you don't know the directions and you think it's all exciting, then before long there are thorns and thistles and all sorts of things along the way. So these people who were teaching the Talmidim, they would come and help them to stay far from mistakes, and they would establish them on truth. So in other words, the Ramchal is pointing out that the title of Navi applies to a person who is acquired, he knows what it is to make a prophecy, to do a prophecy, have a prophecy, and also it could be a person on the path. But a person on the path could still be making mistakes. And for that reason, he needs a teacher to guide him and bring him onto the right path so that ultimately he will become a true prophet in the fullest sense of the word. Thanks very much for joining me. It's the end of the shiur now. I wish you everything of the best. I'm Eliyahu Shir from Chesed Ve'emet, www.lovingkindness.co. If you've enjoyed this short shiur, please like my video, make a positive comment, subscribe to my channel, and click on the bell button to be notified of future shiurim. As always, we welcome you to become a part of the activities of Chesed Ve'emet by just checking out the page and joining in with the project of something that we're doing. Be in touch with us, find out what we're doing. We'd love to be in touch with you and make a partnership of some kind to work on even more in spreading Yiddishkeit and teaching the beautiful values that we see over here from the original text, which is what I really enjoy doing the most. If you've enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends and your family, and let's get the message out there. During this time of the coronavirus, friends, if you're undergoing any difficulties and you're looking for company and you're looking for a path and you need some growth and what to do, please be in touch. We'd be delighted to speak in more detail and see if we can find a way of finding out how we can grow together and overcome the challenges that we're experiencing at this point in time. In the meantime, I say thanks so much for joining me, and I wish you everything of the best, and I'm looking forward to another shiur with you, and I wish you everything of the best. Shalom, shalom, bye-bye.